I'm quite glad that there is a couple of tabletop activities that we can be getting on with. The two activities, the two things that I want to demonstrate today are garlic growing, and this is my garlic bulbs that I'm going to work with in a little moment. And secondly is rhubarb. I'm going to do the garlic first of all. Garlic, I think we'll all be really, really familiar with. I would argue that all of us will have enjoyed an Italian dish at some point or the other in our lifetimes. And with all the new age celebrity chefs sharing their fabulous recipes, garlic seems to be in absolutely every single one of them, which made me kind of wonder a little bit, how much garlic should we be eating? Because I know Jenny mentioned in the PowerPoint it has medicinal health benefits, which I agree wholeheartedly with, because if you go into any health shop, everything's got garlic in it. But I thought, how much garlic is good for you? So I did a little bit of research. Now, it was just via Google, so don't quote me in this and don't take my word for it. But you can actually have too much garlic, and we have been advised to eat no more than 1 clove a day, which made me think, could I eat 1 clove a day? So I did a little bit more research, and apparently the average person eats 300 cloves per year. So, well, I'll just give you 3 seconds to work out if you think you eat that much of cloves, but I don't think I do. I really don't. But anyway, there's a good reason to grow garlic, because if we're going to eat as many cloves as that, we might as well stop buying them out the shops and growing it ourselves. So my next confession, one is I Google everything. My second one is I've never actually grown garlic before myself, and this is my first year of growing it. And this is my garlic that I have grown. So a couple of weeks ago, I'll tell you when I did it, 20th of October was when these were planted, and I am really impressed with what I've got to show you guys today. So garlic growing is really, really simple, and I say that because I'm now experiencing it. But the good thing about it is it's something that can be done indoors on a day like today, when there's not much else happening that we can be doing outdoors, engaging your client group with the outdoors and with gardening. The cloves are also beautifully big to handle. I'll just snap this open. This is just a bulb that you can buy out the garden centres or online, the whole bulb, and you just snap it open, a bit like a chocolate orange, but don't eat it like a chocolate orange. And the cloves just snap away, and that's 1 clove, and it's lovely and big and easy to handle. So those with poorer dexterity and fine motor skills will find this an easier activity to get involved with. So, can I jump the gun a little bit? So what do we need to actually grow garlic? We need our compost, general purpose compost, good quality, is good. It's a hungry plant, and it likes to grow outdoors in fertile, well-drained conditions. Now, as I say, we're doing this as a tabletop activity, but I am growing garlic myself in containers. I've potted some into a pot this size, and that's me growing it here. And I've also got it in an even bigger pot, like so. I've got 6 growing in here, because I have got beautiful waterlogged clay soil for a garden, and garlic does not like waterlogged conditions. It likes cold conditions, and it likes well drained. It needs water, but it needs to be well drained so the water is always leaking away. So I have opted to grow my garlic in containers. So I've got my compost, and I'm going to add in some grit. This is pea gravel or horticultural grit, and the mix is roughly 3 to 1. 3 parts compost to 1 part grit, and just give it a good mix round about. The pea gravel aids with drainage. As I say, the plants have got to be grown outside because they need the cold spell. What the cold does to the clove is it sparks an enzyme in it that generates it to grow more cloves. Whereas if it doesn't get the cold spell, that one singular clove will just grow fatter and fatter. It will grow, but it'll just turn into one big fat clove, as opposed to growing and making a whole bulb of cloves. So I've got my pot here. This is about 15 centimetres, 15 centimetres deep, 15 centimetres across. That's about the minimum size I would suggest that you would get away with growing your garlic in. So just scooping it in. Again, I'm not wearing gloves. For those of you who have watched any of these previous demos, do as I say, not as I do. I'm dreadful for not wearing gloves. But please, if your client groups don't like wearing gloves either, that's fine, but make sure you wash your hands thoroughly afterwards. So, settling the compost to knock out any excess air that might have got trapped in there when I was like putting the compost in. And I've now got my cloves here. They break apart quite easily. And I'm just going to go through them to make sure that they're all fine. And I'm going to plant ones that are all quite big. I don't want any wee skiddly melanky ones getting put in here. If there are any too small, that's good. These are all quite big, so I'm quite happy with them. Yep. If you come across a wee skinny melanky one, don't plant it. Just take it into the kitchen and put it into your bolognese that night. All right, there's wee ones there. I'm not going to use those wee ones. They're not worth it. Yeah, like that one there. I won't use that. I'll take that into the kitchen. You can use bulbs, cloves I should say, that you might have in your fridge, but they're not guaranteed to grow because they probably haven't been stored at the correct temperature up until now. So if you want to have a go at it, you can. Don't not do it, but if you can, always plant up cloves that have been bought out the shop. And if you fill in your surveys at the end of this, you'll get a packet of cloves bulbs sent to you. Okay, so I've now got my garlic bulb all split up into cloves. We've got a top side, a pointy side, and the flat side, we call that the plate end. It's a bit flatter. So I'm just going to put 3 cloves into this size of pot, which is 15 centimetres by 15. And I'm just going to push it down by about 2 centimetres and just cover it over. As simple as that. Flat side down, and it goes, pop it in, cover it over. Next one, point side up, flat side down, then about 2 centimetres, cover it over. Label it, today's date, garlic and the variety. This is Marco, the variety that I'm working with. Now, I would water this, but I'm not going to do it because I'm inside and I really want to take this outside and water it in situ. Give it a good watering, but leave it somewhere outdoors where it will be exposed to the cold temperatures, but it's not going to get deluged with rainwater. So maybe under an awning or something like that would be ideal. Now, it might be that you don't have space to even have a big pot like this, or maybe you do want to plant the garlic into the ground because you're lucky and you've got a nice fertile free draining soil, but you don't want to go outside and do it just now, or perhaps you've got an allotment and you and your client group can't get together for various reasons at the moment to actually go and plant and directly into the raised bed at your allotment. What you could do is plant into some individual pots. These are 9cm square pots that you can buy at garden centres or online. So what I'm going to do is pot up some cloves into them. So I'll mix more compost. Break up all the clunky bits. Give it a good mix through. Tap it to settle the compost a little bit. I'm only going to put 1 clove in here. Point side up, plate side down, pop it in about 2 centimetres, a little wee bit more. Label it so I remember what that is when I'm outside. And that's that one done. Now that means that you might be able to plant up a whole load of garlic and sit it outside your own back door or something like that at the moment. And then when the time comes, when you are able to get together and work together as a group, you can take these along to your allotment and get them planted. These ones here that I planted on the 20th of October, they're in these small sections, and I need to take them out of here. So by about March time, I will take them out and plant them into bigger pots outside, because that's how I'm going to grow all my garlic this year, is in pots. But if it was yourselves, you could then transplant these into the ground. By March, hopefully the rain levels will have reduced a little bit and they won't get so waterlogged. So that's an option for you. You can do it either way. So, care of the garlic. As I've said, come March, if you've got them growing in these small pots, you really want to be getting them potted on into either a bigger container or directly into the ground, so that the bulb has got space to grow and develop. It will start to put on really tall green shoots, like what we've got here. Middle of April, I would start giving them a bit of a top dressing of some feed. But as I say, I've not grown them before, so I'm led to believe that by the end of May, I want to stop feeding them and just let the plant do its own thing. And by the end of June, these stalks and leaves will be starting to go a yellowy browny colour, and that is a good sign that the bulb has fully developed and that's them ready for harvesting. And the way that we harvest them is, if in a pot like this one here that I've got here, I'm going to use a trowel and I'll lever the bulb out, a big dod of compost round about it, and lever it out, because I don't want to damage the bulb. If I damage the bulb, it won't store so well. I'll have to use it really, really quite quickly. So use this hand trowel if you're in a pot, or a big fork a garden fork if you're digging them out of the ground in your garden. Leave them to dry for a couple of days in the sun or indoors in a bright space, and then you can be very creative and plant them and store them. Store them about 5 to 10 degrees, and they should keep for up to 6 months. Now you get 2 varieties of garlic bulbs. You get soft necks and hard necks. The one that I'm working with is a soft neck. The reason I picked the soft neck is because it is reputed to have less problems when growing it, and it stores better, as I say, up to 6 months. You get a hard neck variety that lots of people recommend because it gives a more flavoursome garlic bulb. But I'm going for ease of growing. That was the reason why I've gone for the soft necks. And that's the garlic. So I'm hoping that will inspire you to have a go at planting up the garlic. It's something that can be done indoors just now, but make sure you keep them outdoors. Okay, the second thing that we spoke about Jenny showed on the PowerPoint presentation was our rhubarb. Now I've got a new garden, It's a garden in the making. It's been in the making for what seems like forever. But anyway, we're getting there. And this is the first garden that I've not had rhubarb in. So I am keen to get rhubarb growing because I just love rhubarb. As a child, we were given a paper poke with sugar in it and a stalk of rhubarb and basically kicked outside. Well, we weren't kicked outside, I don't mean that. We were encouraged to go outside and play with our bag of sugar, and I still love to stick a stem of rhubarb into granulated sugar and just stick it. It's great. Why I've still got my own teeth, I've absolutely no idea. But anyway, I must have good teeth. So rhubarb, I definitely want to grow, but as I've already alluded to, I have got the worst soil on the planet. So I am going to grow rhubarb in a pot. You can do that, but you must have a big pot. Unlike the garlic that I said, about 15 centimetres by 15. This is my rhubarb that I potted. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is my big pot. And there's my piddly little rhubarb crown in there. So, but I'm not bothered. I have great patience, and I have got friends who have got rhubarb in their garden that don't really like rhubarb for some strange reason. So I fall heir to all their rhubarb. So what you can be doing if you are interested in having your own rhubarb is pot up your own rhubarb. If you do have a friend who's got rhubarb growing in the ground outside, you can split the crown, just get a big spade, lift the crown, the root of the rhubarb out, get your spade and cut it with the spade, and then break it up into little pieces, and you'll be left with something that looks a bit like this. This is all dried up, but it's fine. Yours, if you're digging it out of the ground, will look a lot fresher than this. So this is the rhubarb root, the underground part, and this is the above ground woody part that will put on new growth and make the leaf and stalks for us to enjoy later on in the year. The stalks, that is, not the leaves. You never eat rhubarb leaves. So if you've got a crown outdoors, you can split it up, break up into little bits about this size, and you can replant them into the ground. But today, because I'm planting into pots, everything is going to go in pots in my garden for the time being, I just want to show you this. Space is an issue. I appreciate that space is a huge issue for people. And I've said that really to grow rhubarb, you want it in a pot at least 50 centimetres deep by 50 centimetres diameter. But why don't we grow it in a smaller pot? Again, good compost, good quality compost, or homemade garden compost, mixed with gravel. I'm just going to make a wee hole in the middle of this. The stringy rooty side down. Firm it in. And I want to leave about a quarter of the rhubarb root or crown, whatever we want to call it, exposed. Oops. Label it rhubarb, today's date. I'll take it outside, sit it somewhere where it's not going to get deluged with water. Give it a good drink of water. And again, a rhubarb plant is something that must be grown outside because it needs that cold spell to initiate its growth in the late winter, early springtime. Now, unlike the garlic that I've just said, we're going to have hundreds of cloves to enjoy by the middle of June, end of June, when we can harvest them. This rhubarb will do nothing this year. It'll put on growth, it'll put down lovely roots in here, but it will barely put on any above soil growth. That's fine, that's normal, and is to be expected. Next year, this one here that I've already got planted in a big pot will put on some stalks for me. I'll only pull a handful of stalks over the whole growing period, maybe 1 or 2 every couple of weeks, because I still want the plant to be protected and let it build up its energy reserves. But by year 3, this is year 1, year 2, I'll pick a couple of stalks. By year 3, I'll be able to crop and harvest frequently from March through to June time. Word of warning, don't pull all the stalks off at one time, and don't twist and pull away from the crown. Always leave half the stalks growing. Don't completely strip it naked of all the stalks at any one time. Always leave some growing. So that's your rhubarb. If you've got rhubarb growing in the ground, you can actually force it about January time, middle of January, end of January. You get a big pot. I can't really demonstrate because I can't demonstrate. But imagine this is my rhubarb growing in the ground outside, and it's an established crown. It's been in the ground for 3 or 4 years, and you can see lots of purple buds and new growth coming away. You can buy posh terracotta rhubarb forcing pots, or you can make your own by just getting a big pot, stuffing fabric or something or black membrane into the drainage holes and covering it over. The rainwater will still get into the roots of the plant round about in the soil, but this dark protected environment forces fresh rhubarb shoots to grow. They won't put on the big green leaves that we're used to. They put on like kind of a weird yellow coloured leaf, but they make the most beautiful and the sweetest tasting pink rhubarb stems ever. And you'll see them in the supermarkets by the end of January, February time. Those are forced ones, and you pay an absolute fortune for them. So I'm looking forward to, in a couple of years' time, I'll have lots of rhubarb that I can force myself. I'll backtrack just a little bit, sorry. I've potted this root into this larger but far too small pot. What I'll do is, once it's started to get its roots round, and I'll know it started to root because the roots will start coming out. I'll just show you roots coming out. This is what roots look like when they're coming out. This is my garlic, and these are all the lovely healthy roots that have developed. When I see roots coming out of this pot, I'll take the whole pot, compost and the roots, and pot it into another bigger pot. Or if I find a freer draining part of my garden, I might put it into there, plant it into there, I should say. Okay, so that's my rhubarb. What can we do with garlic and rhubarb? Well, Jane, who is going to be taking our questions and answers, did ask me that. She goes, Joan, I don't like what you've came up with. I thought, yeah. She said, how about rhubarb and ginger? And I said, no, I don't want to do rhubarb and ginger. I want to do garlic, because garlic, this is the time of year we need to be planting garlic. So it's garlic and rhubarb we're doing. So again, good old Google. I had a little search online, and believe it or not, you can get a garlic and rhubarb recipe. It's linguine with garlic, pepper and rhubarb. Now, it sounds absolutely disgusting, but January, I am going to give this a try. And if you join us in February or March for one of the activities, please do a Q&A question, how was the linguine? Because I will try this because I'm intrigued by it. So you can get recipes with garlic and rhubarb, Jane. So don't ever worry about these sort of things. But there's I did another bit of research into rhubarb, and there's some fabulous recipes for rhubarb. Rhubarb cherry sauce with pork chops. I'm actually thinking I might do that for Boxing Day this year, because we don't eat a lot of pork. No real reason other than I just don't cook pork. But rhubarb and cherry sauce. How am I going to get the rhubarb though? I wonder if tinned rhubarb would work. Anyway, that's for me for another day. Anyway, that's me over and done with. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Joan. Now, do we have any questions at all? Well, a lot of the questions have actually been answered today, but I will run through what's on the chat. What is a good variety to plant of garlic, Joan?
Right, well, you've got your two varieties, soft neck and hard neck. If you're a newbie to garlic, a bit like myself, I would suggest you go with soft neck, okay? And it says it on the packet, like everything. That's what it says on the tin. So on this packet, it says down here that it's a soft neck variety. So you'll find that the garlic that we're going to be sending out to the survey responders is this Marco variety that I've just been planting and what I planted in October. So good to store, apparently very easy to grow, so I would recommend that.
Okay,
but
lovely.
If you're a garlic aficionado, perhaps you should try a hard neck. Okay.
Okay, Jenny also made the comment that for different activities and things like that, mixing the soil is a great sensory activity for people to get their hands into that. So that was just a comment that was made. And when is the garlic ready to harvest?
Middle of June. If you plant up just now, before the end of the year, it should be ready by mid-June. If you don't plant it, maybe until the end of January, February time, I would suggest you definitely plant it somewhere where you can give it a bit of protection, like a cold frame or a polytunnel or a greenhouse, where it's going to get that. It's still going to be cold, but it's going to get a little bit of added protection and added heat to give it time, that extra special treatment to get it just speeding up. So it should be ready to harvest by about June also.
And Amanda has said they've planted theirs outside already. I know Amanda's in Kinross and it grows well and sometimes it starts to flower in early summer due to it being too dry.
Okay. Yeah, watering, like all bulbs, you don't want to overwater them because the bulb can rot and, well, get too wet and rot. But it's a fine balance between it needs water to keep on growing. So be aware. Maybe Amanda, last summer we got caught out because it was glorious, and none of us really believe that it's going to be glorious tomorrow as well as today and yesterday. So just be aware that if it has been dry for a couple of days, don't assume it's going to rain tomorrow just because we're Scotland. If it's needing a drink, it'll need it. But if it's in free-draining soil, the water will, if there's excess water, it will get away. So, yeah, keep watering.
Okay. Linda said that she's never grown garlic before, but like you, Joan. And how long till harvest, which you've actually answered. And is it like seed potato? Do you end up with a seed bulb that you can't actually eat?
No, the whole bulb is edible. Okay, and you might even find sometimes the bulbs have little top sets on them as well, and they're edible also.
Okay, Amanda's actually said no, you can eat it all as well, so that's good. And Brendan.
Sorry, Jane, I'll just add on, the leaves that are edible also. Many people don't eat them, but they're a bit like scallions or leeks. They're all related. They're the same family. You can actually eat them if you were so inclined to.
Okay. Brendan is obviously a champion garlic grower, I think, from what's on this chat. And he says he usually plants his garlic on the first Sunday of March and he lifts it in August. Yeah, and he lives in the north of Glasgow.
Right, okay. And that's well, I'm pleased to hear that. I would have thought that, well, I guess the temperatures in March are still pretty low, that it's getting that cold snap that it requires to bulk up into a bigger bulb. Good.
Okay.
Thanks, Brandon. Good.
And Linda said, do you put it in the fridge first before you... Sorry, I beg your pardon. Do you put it in the fridge first if you plant it later?
No, it's fine.
No. Okay. Brendan's actually said he... Brendan says he actually keeps his garlic bulbs at his allotment in the cold before planting them. So
Well, in fairness, the bulbs that I've got here are being kept outdoors, but under cover, if that makes sense. So they're probably sitting about 4 or 5 degrees at the moment. So yeah, they're being stored in a cool place, which probably actually they're as cool as a fridge.
Okay. And Evelyn, can't wait to start growing it for 2021. So you've inspired somebody, Joan. Also, Brendan, he puts an old metal dustbin over his rhubarb before it on. That was something that he said he did as well. And what time of year do you force the rhubarb on? And what time would you normally harvest it?
Okay, so the rhubarb you're going to force, I would probably say by the end of January, if you just keep an eye on your rhubarb, your old rhubarb, your existing rhubarb crown that's been growing for several years, you'll see little purple bumpy shoots starting to develop on it. That's a sign that that's starting to wake up from its sort of like winter snooze. Cover it then, and that's you starting your forcing process. And within maybe 3 weeks, you'll have stocks of bright pink rhubarb to enjoy.
Okay. Amanda's actually made a comment. Once it starts to sprout, usually about February, so depending on where you live. Yeah. And Brendan, he says he just gives it a few weeks and lifts the bin to check its growth. And if it's good and strong, he'll pick some. Evelyn's actually told us that rhubarb freezes well, which I would vouch for that because my neighbour actually grows it and gives me some as well.